Guess you don't count. That's what my sister said when the seating chart put me outside by the trash cans. The hallways smelled like a funeral, lilies and bleach. I could hear the DJ inside, muffled through the heavy oak doors, counting down to the first dance. My mother stood nearby, adjusting her pearls without looking at me. My father stared at the floor. I tightened my grip on the small silver gift I'd wrapped the night before, smoothed my wine-colored dress, and chose silence. No argument, no tears. I simply stood up and walked out into the cold Lake Tahoe air. 5 minutes later, the chandeliers went quiet and a scream cut the room in half. Here's what happened next. The mountain air was sharp that morning, the kind that smells like pine needles and old money. My sister, Madison, had chosen the Alpine Ridge Resort for its European charm, the kind of place where people took photos just to prove they'd been invited. The glass ballroom overlooked the dark water, strung with orchids and white candles floating in crystal bowls. Every table inside shimmered under the heavy light of the chandeliers. Mine, apparently, was out by the service bins. I'd driven up alone, for hours from San Francisco, replaying Mom's last text in my head. Please, Riley, no drama today. It's Madison's day. That was all I ever was to her. An instruction. A warning label. Don't make noise. Don't take up space. Don't remind anyone there's another daughter. Growing up, we were the cliché you see in staged family portraits. The golden child and the quiet one. Madison had the ribbons and the trophies. I had report cards no one looked at. She'd cry and get rescued. I'd fix things and get ignored. Mom said I was the easy one. Dad said I was independent. Both meant the exact same thing. Being invisible was convenient for them. The last time I saw them all together was Thanksgiving 3 years ago. The house smelled like burnt pie crust and lemon cleaner. Madison was in Greece with her new boyfriend, and for once, the air felt light. Mom asked me to grab an old photo album from her vanity drawer. Instead, I found her little brown journal, the edges soft from years of use. I flipped through it, curious, until my stomach dropped. I realized every single page began the same way. Madison's first day of kindergarten. Madison's favorite meal. Madison's college acceptance. There wasn't a single line about me. Not my birthdays, not my name. When I asked why, Mom smiled like it was a silly question. You never needed the attention, honey. You were always fine. That night, I learned there are two kinds of forgotten, being lost and being erased. I thought about that journal as I walked toward the ballroom now, my heels clicking on the polished marble. Through the glass doors, I saw them posing for photos. Mom in champagne silk, Dad straightening his tie, and Madison glowing in white. She looked back once, saw me, and smiled the same way people smile at store clerks they'll never remember. The coordinator intercepted me with her clipboard. You're Miss Vance? Yeah. Her polite smile faltered when she found my name. Oh. You're listed for hallway seating. I laughed, waiting for her to correct herself. She didn't. Hallway seating, right next to the service doors. I followed her hand toward a small, wobbly folding table by the trash bins. From there, I could see the entire ballroom, every sparkle, every laugh. But there was a wall between us, literal and otherwise. I set my gift on the table, a small silver-wrapped box I'd spent hours picking out, and stared through the glass. Inside, Madison was raising her glass for a photo. Mom was adjusting her veil. Outside, I sat in the cold draft and told myself the same lie I'd told for years. It's fine. You don't need them. But the truth was pressing against my chest, quiet and solid. Maybe I didn't need them, but that didn't mean they had the right to treat me like I never existed. I tried to disappear into the background like always, but the hallway wasn't quiet. Staff came and went through the service door, wheeling bins of melting ice, laughing under their breath. Every time the door swung open, I caught flashes of the ballroom, chandeliers glittering, dresses swaying, my mother's hand on Madison's shoulder like a crown of approval. Then, the laughter shifted. I looked up and saw Madison walking toward me, her bouquet in one hand and her veil trailing behind her like smoke. She stopped just short of the doorway, her reflection doubled in the glass. Two versions of her. One adored inside, one cruel outside. Well, she said, tilting her head, looks like they finally figured out where you belong. I blinked. What's that supposed to mean? She smiled that half smile I'd seen since childhood, the one she used before stealing the spotlight. Guess you don't count. The words landed so softly I almost missed how sharp they were. Guess you don't count. Like it was math. Like I was a miscalculation. For a second, I said nothing. My throat went dry, the kind of dryness that comes from swallowing too much pride. Behind her, the photographer was calling out, "Bride, we need you back in the shot." She didn't move.
She wanted me to react, to cry, to beg,
to prove her point. I didn't. I just looked at her long enough for her smile to finally twitch. You know, I said quietly, there's always been space for both of us. You're the one who keeps shrinking it. Her eyes narrowed. Oh, please, Riley. Not everything is about you. This is my day. You could at least pretend to be happy for once. I let out a small laugh. You made sure I couldn't even sit in the same room. What exactly am I celebrating? For a moment, the mask slipped. I saw a flicker of something. Fear, maybe. Then she straightened, lifting her chin. You always twist things. Maybe Mom was right. You make everything difficult.
Mom.
The name hit harder than I wanted it to. I pictured that brown notebook again. Every page filled with Madison's life, and none of mine. I'm not difficult, I said. You just never liked that I see things the way they are. She rolled her eyes. You sound just like Dad, pathetic and bitter.
Face it, Riley.
Nobody needs your approval. Not here, not ever. She turned on her heel, leaving a trail of perfume and disdain. I watched her go, her white gown brushing the floor, and felt the familiar burn behind my eyes. But this time it didn't hurt the same way. It burned cleaner. When the door closed behind her, I picked up the small silver box from the table. The gift I'd chosen the night before, wrapped in quiet patience. I traced the ribbon once, then slipped it into my bag.
If they didn't want me inside, fine.
But I wasn't leaving empty-handed.
Not this time.
For a while, I just sat there, fingers pressed against the smooth edge of the box, listening to the muffled beat of music leaking through the ballroom doors. It was supposed to be their first dance, a perfect picture. I imagined Mom wiping tears, Dad clapping awkwardly, Madison basking in the applause, the same scene I'd watched my whole life from the edges. But edges cut. I stood up slowly. My reflection caught in the glass panel, still composed, maybe even graceful if you didn't look too closely. Inside the bag, the silver gift felt heavier than it should. I had wrapped it carefully, tying the ribbon tighter than necessary. It wasn't just a present. It was proof, something that could shatter the image Madison had built out of lies. 3 weeks earlier, I'd run into one of her old coworkers in San Francisco. A harmless lunch turned into a confession. Madison had been bragging for months about marrying Chase, about how easy it was to make him trust her. He's sweet, she'd said, but naive. A few fake tears and I get the estate, the money, the last name.
She'd laughed.
My coffee went cold. I hadn't planned to use that information until today. Before leaving the hallway, I walked back to the reception table near the ballroom entrance. The wedding planner was distracted, fussing over centerpieces. I slid the small silver box among the other gifts, right on top of the pile labeled to Madison and Chase. My handwriting was neat, deliberate. Inside, on top of a crystal frame, was a folded note and a printout of the messages her coworker had shown me, screenshots and receipts. Not a threat, just the truth. I stepped back, checked my reflection one last time, and straightened my dress. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, calm in a way that felt almost foreign. Then I turned and walked toward the exit. The Tahoe evening hit me with a rush of cold air. The lake shimmered under the lights, a mirror I didn't need anymore. I could hear the faint echo of clapping behind me, the crowd cheering for a dance I no longer cared to watch. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I reached the parking lot, the crunch of gravel under my heels like punctuation. No dramatic goodbye, no speech, just the quiet closure of a car door. As I started the engine, I looked back once at the glowing windows, the silhouettes moving behind glass, and whispered to myself, let the truth find its way. Inside the ballroom, laughter still floated above the music. A saxophonist hit a soft note. Glasses clinked. The crowd pressed closer around the couple on the dance floor. Madison glowed in that heavy white gown, the picture of perfection she'd rehearsed for months. Chase spun her once, twice, the camera flashes painting everything gold. From outside, the scene looked like a snow globe, sealed, flawless, unreal. Then the silver box was opened. It happened near the gift table. A cousin had gathered the presents, sorting bows for photos. Someone said, let's have them open one. A spur-of-the-moment show for the guests. Madison turned, laughing, and tugged the ribbon free. The paper fell away, the lid lifted, and inside lay the crystal frame and the folded note. Her hand hesitated. What's this? Chase leaned over. The note slid loose and landed face up on the table. His eyes caught the screenshots before she could snatch them. He frowned, scanning the text messages printed in pale blue bubbles. A sentence stuck out. He's so easy to handle. Cry a little, and he buys anything I want. The music didn't stop right away. It just thinned. The violinist stumbled, missing a beat. Madison's fingers shook. This isn't someone's trying to. Chase didn't answer. He just kept reading page after page. Each line was worse than the last. Jokes about getting him to sign the prenup first, moving mom and dad into the guest house once he's settled. The same smirk she'd given me hours ago was now frozen on her face, brittle and wrong. Who sent this? She hissed. Her mother-in-law, Lorraine, had been watching from across the room. When she heard my name whispered by one of the bridesmaids, her expression hardened. She crossed the floor with the slow certainty of someone used to authority. I think you should read the rest before you blame anyone, Lorraine said. These came to me this morning, forwarded from a stylist you hired. Apparently, they were in the wrong thread. Madison's face drained of color. That's not possible. Chase's voice was low. It's real, Madison. The dates match. He turned the final page to a photo of her text. The estate will be mine by Christmas. A collective gasp rippled through the guests. Phones came out. The photographer froze mid-shot. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Madison lunged for the papers. You can't show people that. Lorraine stepped between them. You showed it yourself, sweetheart. That was when the screaming started. Not loud at first, more like air leaving a body too fast. Madison stumbled back, the train of her gown catching under her heel. No, you don't understand. He's lying. Riley, my sister, she did this. Chase's jaw tightened. Riley didn't write those messages. She just showed us who you really are. Stop. The single word cracked through the room like a whip. You did this, Chase said. You humiliated her today, and you thought no one would ever see the truth. Every face was turned toward them now. The DJ lowered the volume. A child's voice asked, Mom, what's happening? Madison's perfect day was dissolving. She spun toward her parents. Do something. My mother stood pale and stiff, her champagne glass trembling. My father looked at the floor, lips pressed tight. For once, neither defended her. You knew, Chase said quietly, his voice shaking. You knew exactly what she was doing. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded document, and set it on the table. This is an annulment petition. I already signed it. Madison stared at the paper like it was a live wire. You can't, Chase. You can't humiliate me like this. I'm not humiliating you, he said. You did that yourself. Someone turned off the music entirely. The room fell into a silence, so deep it buzzed. Then came the sound the guests would remember, crystal shattering as the frame hit the floor. Madison's voice cracked. She's behind this. Riley's behind all of it. Lorraine exhaled slowly. Funny. The only thing your sister did was tell the truth. Outside, I'd stopped by the car, engine idling. The glow from the ballroom windows flickered across the lake. I couldn't hear every word, but I heard the scream. It came sharp and high, echoing across the water, followed by the dull thud of a chair tipping. The sound I'd waited my whole life to hear, not out of cruelty, but closure. Inside, Madison's mascara streaked down her cheeks. "You'll regret this," she shouted. Chase turned away, his shoulders heavy.
No, Madison.
"You will." He walked off the dance floor, followed by Lorraine, the crowd parting around them like a tide. Mom reached for Madison's arm. "Sweetheart, maybe we should step outside." "Don't touch me," she cried, pulling free. "You all wanted this. You never loved me enough." Her voice dissolved into sobs. Dad spoke quietly for the first time that night. "You should apologize to your sister." The words stunned everyone, but Madison only laughed, a sound so brittle it didn't reach her eyes. "Apologize to her? She's not even family." Dad shook his head slowly. "That's where you're wrong." He turned away, his shoulders sagging as he followed the crowd toward the exit. By the time the lights dimmed and the staff began sweeping broken glass, Madison sat alone under the chandelier. Her dress, once dazzling, now looked heavy and wrinkled. The bouquet had fallen beside her chair. The same hands that had pushed me away now clutched air. She never saw me. I was already gone. Through the fogged car window, I watched guests hurry out, whispers trailing behind them. "It's all over social media already." "Did you see his face?" "That poor girl." "No, the other one, the sister." I didn't feel triumph, just quiet. I rested my hand on the steering wheel and thought about the hallway. The smell of lilies and bleach. The folding chair that squeaked. How it all started with a seat by the trash cans. How it ended with the truth laid bare. Justice didn't always roar. Sometimes it whispered, "Now they see you." The scream faded, swallowed by the night. I turned the key and drove away from the sound of my sister's perfect world collapsing. By the time I reached San Francisco, the sky was beginning to gray. My phone buzzed nonstop, 16 missed calls from Mom, 3 from Dad. I didn't check any of them. The quiet was worth more than explanations. When I stepped into my apartment, I hung my dress on the back of a chair. The deep wine color was still flawless, like armor I hadn't known I was wearing. A new message appeared. "Please answer, Riley." We didn't know. That was Mom. She always said that we didn't know, but she had. Every time she told me to stay quiet, she knew. Every time she laughed at Madison's jokes at my expense, she knew. I put the phone face down and opened my laptop. I booked a week at a coastal cottage in Maine. Before leaving, I stepped out onto the balcony. The city air smelled cleaner than it had in years. They could keep their apologies. I had my own truth now. For the first time, silence didn't mean being unseen. It meant being free. At my sister's wedding, I was seated by the trash cans. This morning, I'm sitting by the water. Same silence, different meaning. Sometimes the loudest revenge isn't a scream. It's the sound of your own footsteps leaving the room. Subscribe to Vengeful Goddess for unforgettable tales of betrayal, resilience, and justice, stories you won't hear anywhere else.